police are still at the scene. They say a person was shot and taken to the hospital and later died from those injuries. Who is leaving this drive right here will not be able to get back in. A GRPD Police Chief Eric Winstrom told us this scene early this morning was chaotic when two of his police officers arrived here. We're here at Spencer's Towing and Tire in Hastings, and as you can see behind me, there are several tow trucks that have already arrived. Now, Hastings police just got here and asked them to move these tow trucks off of East State Street because they're expecting hundreds of tow trucks to get here at 8:45 this morning. They're asking them instead to move them from East State Street to Railroad Street. Starting in about an hour, we expect healthcare workers at Trinity Health to walk away from their shifts and begin to picket. I'm going to show you a little look at the door where the suspect's vehicle crashed into. As you can see, it is completely bent back. You're definitely going to want to have air conditioning today, and that's why schools throughout West Michigan have decided to give half days to students. This is my tryout for the Griffins team. Let me try not to fall as I make it over to our interviewee, Brianna. Brianna, do you think I made the cut? One more time in the spout, so then when they turn this handle, clean, drinkable water comes out. While getting ready for Yom Kippur, the members of the temple also set up the Sukkah, a temporary building used for the holiday Sukkot, which starts Friday night. Felipe Gomez was excited that he had been selected as an artist at Art Prize this year, but then he had to decide how to get this piece of art from Austin, Texas to here in Grand Rapids. Last winter, Leticia Gonzalez was behind the wheel of an SUV as it crashed into this then icy pond with her 3 young children inside. On Monday, she was alone in a courtroom with a judge waiting for her sentence.
But I will always love my boys with all of me.
Josiah, who was 1, Jeremiah, who was 3, and Jerome Gonzalez, who was 4, were all inside of the SUV when it flipped into an icy pond. Their mother, Leticia Gonzalez, drifted across the center turn lane and 2 eastbound lanes of James Street and hit a curb. The result?
We're with survival guilt since February 17, 2022.
Her 3 sons died.
I've been sentenced to life without them for the rest of my life, so I'm asking for forgiveness. I'm willing to take the responsibility as their mother, and as a mother should. But I would like my boys to know that I'm sorry from the bottom of my heart, and I hope that they can forgive me, and I hope.
Gonzalez was charged and sentenced to 1 count of operating while intoxicated causing injury and a moving violation causing death. She previously took a plea deal in April, but it was later withdrawn after the court said it would not abide.
This was not a one-time situation.
Judge John Halsing, during sentencing, addressed Gonzalez's past drug usage.
This has been a long-term pattern of placing your children at risk.
Gonzalez says no matter what her sentence is, it won't take away from the fact that her actions led to the death of her sons.
Being their mom was all I ever wanted. Each day I try coming to terms with my reality, but my reality is just a nightmare.
Gonzalez was sentenced to a 2-year minimum and a 5-year maximum sentence in prison. In Holland, Elena Cousineau, News 8. The process for making coffee actually has a large impact on our environment. One professor here in West Michigan is taking a look at lowering that impact. You walk into your local coffee shop, order your favorite cup of joe, and wait. The baristas carefully measure and pour, making sure you get the perfect drink. But there's a lot of work behind the scenes before the coffee beans even arrive at a shop.
There are so many different people that actually go along that process.
Eric Deaton mans this coffee roaster right down the street from their shop in downtown Grand Rapids.
Right, that color's starting to change.
It's a machine that heats up coffee cherries to a certain temperature, which changes the coffee's flavor. Then it cools the beans down. The beans are then either ground or left as is and packaged to be sent to stores.
The benefits of roasting our coffee is we get to control the quality a little better with the size of roaster that we have.
The roasting process produces about 1.2 pounds in carbon emissions, according to a study by the EPA. And that accounts for about 15% of the overall carbon footprint of coffee. But one professor from Calvin University says he wants to do something to decrease that number.
There's CO2 everywhere in the coffee business.
Ren Tuvergen is a chief scientist at Vortex and teaches classes at Calvin University. He spends a lot of time in what he calls the doghouse.
Upstairs.
He's created a device that takes around 85% of the smoke created during the coffee roasting process and putting that smoke into water instead of the air.
Everything that we do can be improved, and all these small improvements go a long way to making the world a better place.
That research could also help out local coffee shops like Roaster Coffee.
There's definitely like some emissions with coffee roasting, obviously not as much as some other things, but it's definitely an interesting proposition.
Almost 200 of the filters created by the professor and Vortex have been installed worldwide. The professor hopes that number will continue to grow.
Bring that down a little sharper now.
It takes a lot of sweat and focus to take this piece of metal and turn it into something else. But that focus can be thrown off by surprises, like a phone call out of the blue.
We thought it was a scam. It's like, they're contacting us? Really? We better check, because this is probably a scam.
It was a message from Forged in Fire, a show on History Channel focused on blacksmiths and the art they create. Now it was time for combat-ready art and its students to show off what they could do. Brianna Lanier.
And I was like, oh, really? You want me to do this?
A blacksmith for almost a year in Blake Maddox.
I've watched the show for years, and then, they asked me if I have any interest being on it and competing, and I really couldn't believe it.
Who has been smithing for 2 years. They took to the main stage where the heat and pressure were on.
At one point, I think I looked up and it was like 115 in here when we were competing, so that was pretty crazy.
John Reeves, who has been smithing for years and owns the Forge, hopes people will see the hard work that his students put in and be inspired to try it out themselves.
Blacksmithing is an art that really can only be taught by doing.
Oh, this is fun. And it inspired me to give it a try as well.
Yep, good, big tip.
Let the metal guide you the first time. Just have fun with it. There's not often many things where you get to play with stars, which is basically the metal, and see what happens.